Thank you for attending today's webinar. The slide you're looking at is our entire software suite that we offer for our clients. That is not to say that everyone's going to be using all different parts of CMIC. We do give the ability for other companies to use parts of what they feel are most necessary for the organization and where they can better deliver results to their customers, subcontractors, owners, and anyone that's involved on a project. And this is very unique. Our system is really made up of our own design. We've developed everything that we're showing here today. As a company, we do not acquire different systems. We partner with other organizations to provide some type of other products, but from a pure development standpoint, that's where CMIC is very unique in today's industry. Everything we have is developed by us, our own developers, and enables our clients to really streamline, to be able to communicate much better, especially what's going on today remotely with different partners, with different employees and different types of contractors, so that they can ensure that projects are delivered on time and on budget. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce Jan Tuckman, Editor-in-Chief of ENR, who will be moderating the rest of this presentation.
Thanks, Laurent. Good afternoon and welcome to the webinar, Perspectives from the Owner's Seat. This event, brought to you by Engineering News Record, is sponsored by CMIC. Hi, I'm Jan Tuckman, ENR's Editor-in-Chief and your moderator for today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. Leaders from major owner organizations will share their views on the construction economy, response to COVID-19, technology trends, workforce, project delivery, and other issues at the top of project owners' minds. How do owner associations help members navigate toward better business outcomes for the whole construction team? During this webinar, attendees will learn about owner strategy in the challenging year ahead. Today's first presenter is Marvin Woodward, Secretary and Treasurer for the Construction Owners Association of America and Deputy Director for the Georgia State Financing and Investment Commission. Joining him will be Luciana Birdie, Vice Chair of the Construction Management Association of America and Deputy Director of Capital Programs and Environmental Affairs at the Massachusetts Port Authority. And finally, today's third presenter is Jim Ellis, President of the Construction Users Roundtable and General Manager of Global Engineering and Project Management at Saudi Arabia Basic Industries Corporation, SABIC. With over 37 years experience in highway and building construction, project development and planning, Marvin Woodward was made the Deputy Director of Georgia State Financing and Investment Commission in April of 2019. He's currently the Secretary and Treasurer for the Construction Owners Association of America and previously served as Deputy State Property Officer for the Georgia Building Authority, State Property Commission, and Georgia State Finance and Investment Commission. With 20 years experience working and managing design and construction projects, Dr. Luciana Birdie is the Deputy Director for Capital Programs and Environmental Affairs for the Massachusetts Port Authority. In her role, she leads the shift of capital programs towards a more innovative, progressive, BIM and design technology-driven department. She's a member of the CMAA National Board of Directors and the chair of the CMAA Emerging Technologies Committee. Jim Ellis joined SABIC executive leadership team in September 2013 and successfully leads a major transformation to globalize engineering and project management in all regions of the world. He is currently leading a diverse global engineering and project management team, enabling SABIC's sustainable growth strategies outside of Saudi Arabia. Jim serves as the current president of the Construction Users Roundtable. Before we begin today's presentation, please enjoy this brief instructional video on how to use your webinar console.
Welcome to this webinar. Before we begin the presentation, I want to provide you with a few housekeeping items. On your screen, you will see a taskbar with icons. Each icon is assigned to a particular element of today's webinar. Click on the person icon to learn more about today's speakers. Throughout the presentation, you can network with others, or submit questions to the speakers in the Q&A and chat box next to the slides. Download resources from the cloud icon. After the webinar is over, please take our survey to tell us how we did. Today's event is being recorded and archived and will be available within 24 hours. For on-demand questions or comments, send us an email by clicking Need Help? Email us. If you experience any technical issues today, please refresh your browser by hitting F5 for PC or Command R for Mac. And now I'm excited to turn it over to today's moderator.
Don't forget to submit your questions, and later in the program, our presenters will address as many as possible. Today's event is being recorded and archived on enr.com/webinar. And now I'm excited to turn over the virtual podium to today's first presenter, Marvin Woodward. Marvin.
Thanks, Jan. As Jan said, I'm Marvin Woodward. I'm representing the Georgia State Financing Investment Commission and also the Construction Owners Association of America. So welcome from Atlanta, Georgia. The Georgia State Financing Investment Commission was founded in 1972 to oversee the sale and construction and management of Georgia's general obligation bonds. GSFIC sells about $1 billion of GO bonds annually. We manage about 50% of that. The other 50% gets managed by counties and cities that have kindergarten through 12th grade programs, and also the Department of Transportation. But the 50% that we manage, we have a team of engineers and architects that perform life safety, code and constructability reviews. We also have another team that is managing the contracts and then out on the site every day doing quality assurance reviews. We do approximately 70% of our work under the CM at risk delivery method, about 20% design bid build, and the remaining 10% designed build. That mixture works well for us. Some of the struggles we're seeing from the design side are quality control of plan submissions, pressure to get projects out that firms are maybe rushing them out the door a little too quickly. And also we're struggling with the complexity of heating, ventilating, control systems. On the construction side, probably our biggest challenge is just finishing the project, trying to get that last 5% done, trying to get over the last hurdle. As far as impacts from COVID-19, we have had very minimal impacts from the design or construction side. Currently, we've got 30 projects under construction. Most of those have been right on schedule, so we actually have been surprised by that, although everybody knows in the last week or so there's been a uptick in positive responses to COVID-19, particularly in the southern part of the U.S. Next, I want to put my other hat on, and I'm the Secretary Treasurer and on the board of the Construction Owners Association of America. We are an association that does not own construction firms, but we are a group of owners that manage construction and design. We're a fairly new organization. The design side has their piece of the puzzle. They've had associations for many, many years. Same as the construction builders side. So we're similar to what AIA is for the architects, or AGC or ABC or CMAA is for the building side. COA was founded in 1994 by an attorney that actually did construction litigation here in Atlanta. He realized there was no organization representing construction owners, so he took it upon himself to create an organization that represents owners. We are a 501c6 nonprofit organization, and we're managed by a board of directors that represent organizations throughout the United States. Our value proposition is education, events, and people. We provide a lot of opportunities for people to meet together, collaborate. I'll talk a little bit more about education in a future slide. But we've spent a lot of time talking about people and what it means to be a good owner. So that's what we mean by the COA way. We've all stepped on projects before where you can sense that the team's working well together. They're collaborating, they're solving problems, and then you step on another job site and you could kind of cut the tension with a knife and realize nobody's communicating. And so we want to be a group of good owners that facilitates good, better projects through people, best practices, and culture. And one thing I've appreciated about COA is the transparency about not only sharing what works well, but maybe even more importantly, sharing what does not work well. And so I've learned a lot from my peers throughout the country. And I would also say COA is an organization of generalists. We're not people that specialize in any particular area, but kind of general oversight of design and construction projects. Currently, we have 10 chapters in the U.S. You can see we're kind of East Coast, Midwest focused. We would like to form more chapters, and one in Wisconsin that's being formed right now. So if you're in any of these states that have a chapter and you're an owner, I encourage you to get involved. And even if you're a contractor or designer, architect, we welcome you to the table and appreciate that collaboration. But it's a good way to get involved, be in touch, and learn from your peers about what's going on in state and in your. We asked some of our current owners some of what their concerns are today, and obviously the uncertainty of COVID-19, both from trying to keep our own workforce safe, but what's occurring with our architect design teams and also on our construction sites. Skilled labor shortage continues to be a concern, not only with the trades, again, architects and designers, but also trying to find good staff as owners to manage the process. And then this last statement may be a little bit controversial, but we're concerned about smart and sustainable buildings maybe being neither. And what I mean by that is maybe we're designing a building that's too sophisticated, that is hard for owners to manage, and therefore possibly they do not utilize all the characteristics that were designed for the building, and we just override the system. So maybe we're spending more energy, and the building is not sustainable like it was originally designed. So looking at all these issues is why owners appreciate COA and why I'm part of COA. How is COA helping? Well, we have two conferences a year. We typically have them at East Coast and Midwest or West Coast, but now that we can't meet, we're doing virtual. So our next fall conference will be virtually on November 12th and 13th, and we'll have 2 4-hour sessions in the afternoon on those days. We're conducting town hall meetings virtually, and we meet as a leadership of the organization and have retreats and talk about best practices in the organization. And finally, I just want to close with COA's Owner Training Institute. We have 12 courses that are developed to train folks how to be a good owner. And one of the unique aspects is that it's a 3-person instructional pool. We have an owner representative, somebody from the architect engineering side, and then somebody from the construction side. So that serves us very well, and our training stems from initial design through construction, project delivery, and all the way to closeout. So we have 12 courses, developing a 13th one about lean. And so we encourage you to consider hosting or attending one of those classes if you'd like to learn how to be a better owner or learn more about project delivery. So I look forward to taking questions. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Luciana Berti from the Massachusetts Ports Authority.
Great. Thank you, Marvin, for passing me the baton. And thank you, Jen, for inviting me to present how Massport and our department is addressing some of the COVID challenges. So today I will be covering three elements. The first one is the centralized construction screening that we developed as a consequence of COVID. The second element is the future airport. What is Massport doing to be ready for the next wave of passengers when they will come? And third is how is CMAA, the Construction Management Association of America, is leading this change, this new wave of the different way how we are doing business. So let's go with the first one, the centralized construction screening. We all know what happened on mid-March, beginning of April. We were shocked by this big wave, and the Northeast was the first area. Massachusetts just followed New York on the big wave of COVID infection. So the challenge that we had to deal is making sure that we continue construction in a safe and healthy environment, not only for us, Massport, we work, on our job sites, but also the construction employees that work with us. At the same time, we had to follow the CDC guidelines. We had to match also the Massachusetts directive, which were different and more restrictive than the CDC guidelines. We wanted ability to modify. We needed to track the workers and continue to do some work. So we developed a workflow. You can see on the right side, on your right side of the slide, in which we took upon ourselves to manage the screening. We did not have the benefit of having other states going through the same challenges that we had. So we had to invent and reinvent a process. So I can go through the detail, but the challenges that we had, what we had to do, we basically built up a tent. You can see the original tent. We then had to move, where we had two traffic, vehicle traffic and foot traffic. We had shifts from 4:30 in the morning until 9:30 in the morning. The shift changed, and we had to have everybody who was going through any of our job sites, which for a period of time were reduced through the COVID, going through this screening. We took over within 4 days. We developed the process, we built the facility, and we manned the facility. So we started screening on April 6th, and on July 6th, just like 10 days ago, we passed the screening to the CM and the contractors. So they are now doing the same process per project, and they're following through the same. They're basically reporting in the same platform. We just to give a quick stat, we were between April 6th and July 6th. We averaged 700 screened personnel per day. So we were all manned by Massport employees. So we had the fire department who was checking the temperature, and I volunteered as well to go through the screening. Something that we had to try to track is how many people were going through the screening and how many people were screened through each project. So you can see we use Esri, and we develop an app, and this is an in-house developed app, in-house developed survey, which has the ability to track. You can see in the middle of the slide the daily track, how many people passed the screening and how many people failed. And this allowed us to go and also do some contact tracing. We were able, through the data behind the system, to track who was failing, who's the person who was working for, who was screened before, and all the data that is needed to do the best contract tracing. So knock on wood, this process has been working. You could see even, the numbers there in the app, whereas June 30th. What we are doing now is the actual contractor are uploading the data in the same app. So we can go any time of the day or the night and understand how we're standing with tracking and with the screening of our employees. Of the construction, not the employee. The next topic is how is the experience at the airport is going to change. And Logan is not the only airport that is going through this big shift. The chart that you see is actually coming from the TSA. Those are TSA numbers, and Logan number mirror the TSA number. You could see the big drop between March 8th and March 29, which is basically where the dip happened. You see in orange where the number in 2019, and in blue what are the current numbers. So we are 90% below the passenger. But again, we need to make sure that when the passenger come back, they feel that they come back in a healthy and safe environment. And how are we doing? We are looking at the big touch points. So we are looking at the security checkpoint. We are looking at the hold room, at the check-in halls, and at the baggage claim. And how can we modify? What can we do to allow people to feel quote unquote comfortable to come back and use our facilities? The next two slides is just some picture of what the changes that we are doing. We are basically we purchased these. We developed these banners that are putting around the seats. We are making family seating. Obviously, there is a lot of 60% of our travel pre-COVID was leisure, so there were a lot of family traveling. So you can see some of the plan within the hold rooms. This is actually in the baggage claim, and the picture on the right is not staged. Actually, passengers are feeling comfortable to stand on their on the prepare decal to actually while they're waiting for their baggage to arrive. So we are continuing to do that. These are not the only things that we are developing, but these are some of the things that we are implementing, and we are increasing it daily. The last slide that I want to cover is CMAA. As it was mentioned, I'm the vice chair of the CMAA. CMAA is the Construction Management Association of America. Our mission is to promote the profession of construction management and the use of qualified construction managers on projects and programs. The challenge and the engagement the CMAA has is that we want to be seen as the leaders on the change that is happening in the construction, in the United States. We all know of the chart pre-COVID that highlights how the construction productivity is still lagging compared with other industry. And this is data from 2014 from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. COVID, in the right side of the slide, is a new report issued by McKinsey on June 4th to 2020, which is highlighting how COVID is accelerating some of the big changes that are needed in the construction. And how CMAA is doing that is by looking at areas like virtual design and construction, like using lean and agile management, business intelligence, what is the data behind what we do, artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics. So we are very active. We have a very active membership, and we have groups and subgroups. So I really urge everybody to go look and visit cmaanet.org and to know more about CMA as well. I'm now passing the baton to Jim Hellis, a Global VP for, the next slide.
Thank you, Luciana. Thank you very much. And first, let me thank Jan and ENR for giving us the opportunity to share both on behalf of Sabik and Kurt. And secondly, and probably first and more foremost, I hope each and every one of you are well going through this this challenge that we're all facing, and your families are healthy and safe, number one. So what I'd like to do today is give a little bit of background on Sabik. We're a little known company that happens to be the third world's largest chemical manufacturer, petrochemical manufacturer in the world, growing more now with the recent share purchase of from Aramco, and will continue to grow through time. Our vision is to be number one globally. As we think about Sabik at a glance, 1976 we were formed based on actually a sustainability strategy where most of the natural gas was being vented from the oil fields, and we turned that into very, very useful products, which now are creating opportunities to serve our customers across the globe. About 33,000 employees. We're over in 50 countries, again, third largest. 120th in terms of public companies globally, with about a turn of about 4.3 billion and total assets of 85 billion and net income of about 6 billion. If you look at our new products, we also have a very strong technical arm and research and development, which over 150 new products and patents a year. And clearly, we're a leader in being world-class relative to our operations worldwide, with 64 of them globally. I do want to turn my attention, and I appreciate Luciana because she's gone through some of the details, and I don't want to belabor that any further, but I think there are a couple of key learnings as we've worked and navigated successfully through some of the COVID-19 process. And first and foremost, it is about people, and it's about people's safety and well-being. And as an owner, it's not just about owner safety, it's also about all the contractors that are working on behalf of our company and providing services. It's been a top-down, leadership-driven process, starting with crisis management from the very, very top, flowing down to every element of the operations within Sabik, founded on a culture of care for people, care for our stakeholders. Huge stakeholder engagement was required in order for us to successfully, manage through over 1,000 different projects globally. And one of the key learnings for us, obviously, is when you do engage stakeholders, there was huge learnings as this COVID-19 transitioned from Asia across the globe and into the U.S. now, and translating those best practices and learnings into value in protecting people. Robust crisis management was very, very key, getting our enterprise risk management processes geared up towards this. They were already in good shape, but facing something like this is new, novel, and requires very, different types of thinking. Although we are managing a crisis, a lot more people were impacted on a global scale. So we had to raise it up to that level of magnitude. And it's always about assessing and then mitigating the risks, more important, mitigating them. And we found that in order to be successful, we had to be agile. And we talk a lot about agility, but agility is a key strength of any organization, to be able to respond on real data. And we had a good data flow coming in across the globe, and that enabled us to have very, very few cases and be able to shut down some projects, but for the most part, continue with a lot of projects and do that COVID-free. And that's a key success moving for us. As we think about the next step, I'd like to share a little bit about the challenges that we are facing moving forward. And I think this kind of helps to summarize some of those in terms of economic impact. It's going to be a rough road ahead for us in the chemical sector. With the first cases kind of being in December, January, and oil prices going negative, and March and April, companies announcing major decisions to stop work. Engineering and procurement can continue, but construction is a little bit problematic. And some have just made decisions to terminate very, very large projects like the 12 LNG projects. And these are tens of billions of dollars of capital investment across the globe. With that, many owners and EPCs deployed these work from home strategies, and this is becoming a new way of us of doing work. And frankly speaking, one of the surprises for us, we found that for the most part, it was quite productive. We didn't expect that as an outcome. And then finally, I talked about the east to west migration. Some of the economic challenges in the chemical segment, with a lot of companies idling, reducing rates, repurposing their facilities, some for good reasons. For example, for hand sanitizers, a lot of chemical plants repurposed, and that was to meet a COVID critical need. But there are going to be continued significant cuts in global capital spending due to the sharp fall off in demand. There is an impact. IPA, independent project analysis benchmarks indicate about a 34% reduction. And we see about 76% of companies surveyed by IPA show that their delayed projects are going to have an average suspension time of 10 to 20 weeks, which is real money. It's NPV and IRRs that are being eroded as a result of that. Can we mitigate some? Sure, through the right measures, but not all, perhaps. And then many owners and EPCs, people's jobs have been impacted. Contractors, layoffs, furloughs, reductions in wages. We're seeing that all to mitigate the economic impact. But looking forward has some bright spots, right? Although we see some decreases from the Energy Agency quoted here, the ACC is also predicting GDP impact 6% and maybe expanding, recovering a bit in 2021. And the American Chemistry Council is also looking at spending falling. So it's kind of validating this from different sources and predicting that capital investment will fall about 10% and then start to recover again in 2021. The key is we already have a huge challenge on construction labor and workforce availability, and this is going to have an overall greater impact and perhaps compound some of that, which I'll share here in a minute. So with that, let me turn to the next chart and cover a little bit about workforce. So one of the things that are a big challenge, we talked about what are some of the challenges for owners in our industry, and it is about workforce. But the way I look at this is there is truly a business case for this. If we look at the CLMA prediction for the amount of capital that's going to be spent in the U.S., it's about $1 trillion to spend in base plus infrastructure plus inflationary costs. And the peak craft labor demand is going to be about 7 to 8 million skilled workers. Could be pushed a couple years due to COVID, but most likely some of this will still be needed. We're somewhere in the area of about 1 to 2 million in skilled workers short in the U.S. to really meet the needs. And you have a compounding factor here that 25% of our skilled labor will retire in 2022 with about 50% retiring in 2033. So what else is compounding this? All of you are aware of the productivity challenges that we've had. And just a couple of comparatives here. Productivity on a gross value added per construction hour has remained flat since 1947. Where manufacturing, through manufacturing 4.0, then 5.0, and agriculture, working on some technology-driven innovations, have shown remarkable improvements in productivities through that same period. And we're looking now at time on tools, an old traditional measurement for both maintenance and projects, being in the order of 35 to 40% in the U.S., which creates a significant productivity opportunity. So what are owners doing? They're going forward and saying, I still got to get my plants built, so let's go forward with offshore engineering and fabrication. We're seeing more of that in China, India, in the Southeast Asia, Mexico, etc. And the adjusted craft U.S. work demand, we're doing that, is about 2 to 3 million craft workers, maybe even slightly higher with this fabrication offshore alone, not even including engineering. But surprisingly enough, we're seeing safety, productivity, cost, quality, and schedules, all the key KPIs for projects at or better than U.S.-based execution. So what's the story here, Jim? The story here is if we continue to do this, it's also a very significant impact on U.S. GDP. So the estimated lost direct wages associated with offshoring is going to be quite significant over a 10-year period. And it's compounded when you think about the economic impact of some new greenfield sites going in around the U.S. to capitalize on things like shale gas in both the Northeast and in the Gulf. But when I quantify the tax impact associated with this, it's in the order of $500 billion. This should be enough for us to rally around at a government level and at an academic level as an industry to really fund the renewal of our craft labor in the U.S. and stop talking about it and really do something about it moving forward. So a huge challenge. Kurt, who I happen to be the president of, is on top of this and working, putting together all kinds of measures that we can do this, including, supporting the lean methodologies that I've talked about and fabrication. But more importantly, how do we get craft training back to where it needs to be in order to support this? And how do we make sure that it's in partnership with our contract partners and owners together? The next chart here that I'd like to share is a little bit about another gap that we see is in technology. We talk a great story about technology, and we know that technology drives the productivity improvements, as we've seen for manufacturing. And so there are a number of things that we can click here. I think Dr. Luciana shared very similar ones. I won't go through the details of this, but I think the next step for us is to really put this on steroids and really start to drive some of these as value advantages and take the technologies and transfer them into value for companies and their shareholders moving forward. It's something that I believe is low-hanging fruit that we just are not really exploiting to the right level, and a key for industry to really transform itself over the course of the next 2, 3 to 5 years. Finally, I want to talk about CURT. CURT is an organization I'm proud to lead. I have benefits of not only leading it, but also extracting a lot from it through the learnings that I take away. I've been part of CURT since the last 10 years. I really pride myself on being able to learn a lot, extract best practices, take the learnings and translate those into value for me as an owner. I have the value of the networking that goes on through the owner companies and also the contractors that participate, and the cross collaboration is tremendous. CURT exists to help owners to achieve the most productive use of the capital dollars by providing, the leadership, the business issues, stepping up to them, promoting excellence and creation of the capital assets. And CURT continues to be a driving force for industry and peers of mine across the industry. We have several active committees, which include safety and wellness, which we all know is the foundation for everything we do, off-site construction, lean project delivery, workforce development, procurement, contracting, and also technology and productivity. So one of the key initiatives that I do want to share with you in kind of closing here is something that is extremely important about our industry, and this initiative is premised on this. If you take a look at project delivery, it's not delivering. And what are the root causes? Well, let's look at the data first. 98% of mega projects that are greater than $1 billion are experiencing cost overruns. 95% of projects are in position where they're not meeting one or more business objectives. 70% of all projects are not complete within 10% of the budgeted costs, which is truly the figure where we have to go back to our governance systems in many companies and get additional approvals for this. So to quote Brendan Bechtel, our industry pretty much is on fire, and it's not economically viable for many sectors to really compete any longer. And margins are low for both companies as well as for the EPCs that are performing services on our owners' behalf. So what are the root causes? There are many of these, and I can elaborate on a lot of them, but I want to focus on one where there's a collaboration effort going on between CII and CURT together, and the University of Texas being part of CII in terms of the research on, to address some of the waste that's in the project system. 41% of the project capital is wasted in the transactional process. So what is CURT doing about it? Again, partnering with CII, working on identifying where these opportunities reside for us to reduce waste. And there's quite a few of them here that we could work on. And in the short run, we're prioritizing some of these. Goal congruence and alignment. It's very, very important when you think about all the stakeholders associated with the project. Supplier engagement. Dynamic risk modeling that we all know is very, very important to us. And dynamic risk modeling means not only the project itself, but also the business risks that are going on. So we need to be redefining the capital project business model, not only the project capital execution model. And then finally, how do we start to take advantage of some of these technologies like smart contracts and moving forward with blockchain? So with this, it's extremely exciting for be a part of CURT. CURT is obviously an organization that can add value for many owners and contractors across the board. There's been a tremendous focus recently on the In Crisis series. I won't go through all the details, but there have been webinars similar to this where folks get together and share their experiences, best practices, and it takes us to another level. And then finally, I want to encourage you to also participate in the upcoming events in August. We have an International Construction Summit that's August 24th, an Offsite Construction Summit, and finally a Workforce Development Summit. And encourage you to go off to our website and register. So with that, Jan, thank you. I'd like to turn it back to you now for the Q&A session.
Thank you all for your presentations. Those were really good, and I appreciate it, and timely, and we're getting a lot of questions, so we're going to get right to those very soon. You can, and by the way, other people, you can still add questions in the chat window. But I want to first, just 1 second, remind you that we really appreciate feedback through our webinar survey to help us improve these programs. And the survey is available on your screen right now and can be filled out following the webinar. And now for our first question, I want to go to Robert Grotenthaler, who asked, what should contractors be focusing on to come out of the current downturn stronger? It's kind of open to any of our speakers. Somebody want to jump in on that one?
This is Luciana. I can focus from my perspective. I think contractors should focus on making sure that their worker, people that are on the site, they feel comfortable. I think we all three of the three speakers talked about people, right? Our industry, it's an industry of people. We are the one delivering, and we are so other industries, they don't interact with each other as much as we do. We have multiple trades on the same job site in the same area. So as much as we know that my company does a great job, I think it's the responsibility of the CM of the GC, the construction manager, to make sure that everybody follows the same guidelines. I can tell you that we received so many positive feedback when we put in place the screening. When I was volunteering, I had people that on the way out, they said, thank you for doing this, because we're making them feel better. And I think that is one of the most important things now.
I'd like to build on Dr. Luciana's points here, if you allow me, Jan, one point to make here. And it's a good question, but safety comes to the forefront here, right? So when we think about COVID-19, it's another distraction, right? Our workers are distracted. And we know when workers get distracted, they put themselves at risk. So making sure we're reaching out, we're engaging, making sure that, to Dr. Luciana's, we're asking people how they feel, are they comfortable, sending out surveys, but ensuring that the worker in the field is actually focused, and we help them to stay focused through our field and felt leadership in the field as leaders is going to be important to whether or not we kind of compound this with additional safety incidents and injuries, or we actually come away from this in a better position.
Yeah, thanks. Several of our audience members have also brought up, they're interested because you all kind of touched on project delivery, and they're interested in what kind of project delivery really works. And one here it is, Chris Sophie, I'm not sure how to pronounce the name, wondered whether any of the panelists have heard of the new project delivery wave of DFMA, Design for Manufacture and Assembly. Anybody want to chime in on project delivery and DFMA?
This is Marvin. I'll go first. We do a lot of higher ed work, so we don't do manufacturing, so I can't address that. But the CM at risk process continues to just to be almost the perfect delivery method for us. We get a lot of innovation and pre-construction and value engineering thoughts between the collaboration between the architectural design team and the contractor. So we're happy with that delivery method. So if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Mm-hmm. Jim, I wonder if you've heard of the FMA. That sounds like it might be something that would be in your world.
Yeah, so this is a good question, and manufacturing is a critical part of executing any project that has a manufacturing asset. That's the end delivery, right? So we're driving these lean pull-through strategies, right? So if we start the project and we're developing the project very early on and go back to the OS1 concept of FEL 1, 2, and 3, right, where we all learned about that. The very early phases of project development needs to engage manufacturing to define, the objectives. And then through that course of the project, manufacturing is pulling this all the way through. If you think about it, construction pulls the engineering and procurement, and then the startup and commissioning pull the construction, right, in terms of sequencing. And when you're not aligned, and this is what I value around this, having congruence around these objectives, aligned objectives, is if everybody's aligned on that all the way through the manufacturing asset, and you have a system that supports a manufacturing pull-through, a lean type of methodology, I believe projects that execute that way are a lot more successful.
Cool. We also got a question from Edward Douglas, who is wondering whether any of you could envision changes to current construction contracts to compensate the project team for the unforeseen conditions, so to speak, of COVID. That's a little tough one. Can anybody speak to that?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I can envision that happening in the future. I mean, currently we're trying to be very lenient with the contingency that we have in the project, and to be fair with the contractor and let them use some of that contingency to mitigate the impacts from COVID-19.
Anyone else?
Massport is doing the same. Capital program is doing the same things. We're trying to collect all these costs that could be possibly associated with COVID, and so we put in place some financial directive. So I don't know how these applies to other companies, but capital program, we ask every, so we have an automatic up to 5% increase for every consultant of their hourly rate every year. So they don't have to ask permission if me working for ABC consulting firm gets a 5%, up to 5% bonus, right? Or increase on my salary. We basically stopped that. We said by the end of the year, you are not getting it because we are not getting it. Massport is not getting any financial benefit for this coming year. So we basically notified the consultant that we will not be approving any increase of salary until the end of 2020, December. And these are some of the examples.
Okay, good. Jim, Lassa Compton asked for a follow-up on the University of Texas study and what you're learning about tracking the losses in communication, et cetera, like other factors.
Yeah, so really, really good question. So that's probably one of the key root causes, right, and why this congruence on objectives is extremely important. So, when we talk about communications, I think that's one of the weaker links, and it's a weaker link when you think about the project process in a stovepipe kind of environment, right? So one of the things we're encouraging to improve communications across the board is really to drive this whole integrated project management team approach, IPMT approach to project execution. where the team comes on very, very early on, and you set communication protocols in place as part of your fundamental managing process across the project lifecycle. However, not everybody does that well, so it is a big source of waste when you think about rework and you think about things that are not aligned, and you have the contractor thinking one thing and the owner's thinking another thing, and before you know it, you have a big mess on your hands and all kinds of change orders and things of that nature that you're going to have to manage. So, quantifying this is part of one of the research programs that will go on. We'll quantify, what's the benefit associated with having objective congruence. We know that when IPA benchmarks this, the team dynamic is a very, very key leading indicator of which communications is part of the team dynamic in terms of predicting project success. So to me, you've hit on something very, very important. And I think this is something project teams absolutely have to pay attention to at the very, very early and onset of the project being developed.
Okay, Michael Schroeder asked another tough question. I'm giving you the tough one. Who will manage the new and highly collaborative project delivery approach to reduce the transaction cost? And will an owner need to pay a premium?
So let me take that, because I think that's about OS2, right? Operating System 2. Michael, that's the question you're asking here.
Oh, yeah, could be. Yeah, could be.
And as we're thinking about this, right now, it's kind of a lose-lose proposition in the way we're contracting today, right? And we need to be thinking about this through how do we ensure that there's a win-win strategy across that whole set of stakeholders that really are contributing to the project. So it's not about owners paying more or less, contractors paying more or less. It's how do we utilize the technologies like blockchain and smart contracts and things of that nature. So at the end of the day, through technology, we're able to create this environment where we are eliminating the waste, and we are creating win-win opportunities. And owners get a benefit because if the contractors are all making 1% or less than 1% margins moving into the future, we're not going to have many contractors around, frankly speaking, to do our work with. So unless we really focus in on this whole win-win environment, and that's one of the ideas around OS2 is how do you start to step up to this contracting environment utilizing technologies to help bring this to a much better and fair treatment across the entire project process and stakeholder community.
Thanks a lot. Here's one for Marvin from Brian Shabal. He says he would concur with Mr. Woodward's recognition of the challenge of smart and sustainable building. Feeling at times the owner is challenged to either develop highly trained staff to operate and maintain these systems, or tether to the system vendor or contractor for ongoing system maintenance and troubleshooting, or a combination of the two. Is this inevitable? What do you think, Marvin?
It's definitely a challenge. I think as owners and designers, we really need to spend a lot of time up front talking to the folks that are going to be operating and managing the facility, because a lot of times they're pulled in a lot of different directions and can't even focus a significant amount of their time on operating the building control system. So I think we're making assumptions that everybody can operate fairly sophisticated systems when that's not the case. So we're just trying to focus on a lot more Q&A up front to try to assess the technical expertise of the folks that'll be managing the building. That's the best answer I can give at this point.
All right, thanks. Good, and maybe we probably have one or two more questions. Aaron Gould asks, how are workforce cultural trends and psychology, like the idea that construction sector jobs might be undesirable, being considered along with significant long-term downward trends and so forth to work towards getting our workforce back up to speed.
This is Luciana.
Yes.
I can take that. At least I can start with that. There are I don't think COVID is gonna make it worse of an impact of the undesirability of construction. Construction is construction, right? It was pre-COVID and it's going to be post-COVID. So I don't think again COVID will change. What I notice within my employees and the construction worker is that you need to put more attention on more soft skill element. So DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, making sure that things that we were superficially doing, we are intentionally addressing now. And then any sector, which can be applied to any sector. Again, but if we embrace that, design and construction, especially construction, has a very low rate of minorities. So I think if we focus on those and STEM and STEAM, we can open opportunities. At the same time, if we open to innovation, I think a lot of newer generation, because of the resistance to change that construction has, that is used to have, has derailed the interest of the younger generation who's looking more like a data. I lost someone of data analysts to go in New York just last week through COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And so this will open new opportunities if we address them.
Oh, thank you so much. I think I better bring this to a close. You could tell how the questions keep popping in, that our audience was really appreciating the chance to get to interact with owners and hear more about your businesses, your ideas, your owner organizations, Construction Management Association, which deals with owner issues, of course. And so I really want to thank Marvin, Luciana, and Jim for all of the presentations, as well as our sponsor, CMIC. If you have any additional questions or comments, please don't hesitate to click the Email Us button on the console, and we'll share those with our presenters so they can respond to you directly. Also, please visit or direct colleagues to enr.com/webinars for the archive of this presentation, as well as information about upcoming ENR events. If you're interested in learning more about owners, airing directly after this webinar is a special event hosted by the Construction Owners Association of America. And there's a sign-up link in the Handouts tab to learn more or to register. And now, please stay tuned for concluding remarks from today's sponsor, CMIC.
Thank you very much, Jen, and thanks everyone for these great presentations. Just finishing off with a couple final thoughts. One of the things that our customers are really looking for, have been asking us to, is how do we improve that kind of communication to prevent those project overruns and delays that Jim was talking about. And we have found that by being able to streamline our entire system, and not just from what they're using it as a contractor, but then how do they improve the communication, everyone in the project delivery chain, from the owner to the subcontractor to the architect to the engineer. That is something that we are addressing with the different companies that we work with, so that they're able to transfer that data back and forth and trust the data that they're seeing, so that as they want to make decisions, as they look at the analytics, that it's the right decisions, it's the right data, so that they're able to prevent those overruns and those delays. So just want to finish off with that thought. I want to thank everyone for their time. I want to thank everyone for the great information. If people want to learn more about CMIC, please visit us at cmicglobal.com, or take a moment to email us at sales@cmicglobal.com for any further questions, or just to learn more about how we can help other organizations. Thank you.